it's basically be like a 10-foot.
Yeah, that's at the beginning.
Yeah. Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry on Thursday evening, August 2nd. We have an agenda with 12 items tonight. We're going to make a couple of changes in the order. We're going to move item number 2, 4 Florence Avenue, toward the end of the meeting, and move item number 10, 189 Northfield, up under 8, so it'd become number 9. So with those changes, we'll move forward from here. I must say, often in the past, we have been able to not hold an August meeting because the agenda was so small. It's kind of interesting to me tonight to have 12 items on our agenda. I hope that means that a lot of good things are happening in the village, and we're pleased to be here to help that process. Item number 1 on our agenda is to adopt minutes of planning board meetings of May 3, June 7, and July 12, 2018. Let's just take them one at a time. I have no comments on the May 3 meeting. Does anyone have any comments on that? No?
No.
I would move that we adopt them. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you. Our June 7, wait a minute. Our June 7, I also have no comments on that. Any comments on that? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And our meeting of July 12, I reviewed that and have no comments. Any of them have comments?
Just one little typo that Javier wasn't around, and he's shown as voting to close the meeting.
Well,
Voting,
In that sense.
Javier voting early and often.
all right. We will pick someone else to have closed that meeting. I move the adoption with the amendment. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you, Alan, for that. At least somebody's looking closely at these.
I have no recollection.
Item number 2 on our agenda, 4 Florence have been moved down, is 484 Broadway. It's a public hearing for site plan approval for proposed kitchen addition to create an open kitchen dining area.
That's all
Do you have a handout? There should be a resolution on it.
right. I did.
Hey, Ed, excuse me, I think on this and several others, we had resolutions prepared. I don't have them at my,
I don't either.
in fact, nobody has them.
Was it?
Yes,
I can explain where we're at in the process, where we left them. And we are doing a one-story addition to this house. And I think it was presented last time by my colleague, Stefano Laird. Since then, we received the comments from Con Engineering. So we've made some changes. We have no problem with any of the items on the list from Con Engineering. They're really updating our industry storm standards, making a few minor changes. And we accept all the comments that they've given us and complying with all. So this is our updated site plan, and I have copies for everyone if you'd like to see that. So that was, seemed to be the only item, the only area we needed to address. Do you need for me to review the project again with you? Would you like to see the project that we presented last month, or would you like me to
I
review
don't,
it again?
I don't think so. It was a very complete presentation last month, and I think the board greeted it with enthusiasm. It's nice to see old and important houses being updated to be used by families, so.
And here are copies of the revised site
Good.
plan.
Good. Yeah.
Our letter.
Okay, good. Christina, I think that's fine. This is a public hearing. I would like to move to open the public hearing. Second? All in favor? Aye. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on, this is 484 Broadway. It's a proposed kitchen addition for one of the older houses along Broadway in Dobbs Ferry. Which I would, thank you. I would move then to close the public hearing. Second? All in favor? Thank you. I think we're set. So,
The resolution, are you prepared on a resolution for this one?
we do have a resolution.
Oh, you have that one?
It just appeared.
Good. Ed was looking for it.
It just appeared. I would then make a motion, Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board resolution granting site plan approval for the construction of an addition to an existing single-family house together with related site work at 484 Broadway. Whereas Andrew Sears and Cato Laughlin, owners, have applied for site plan approval to construct an addition and make related site improvements at 484 Broadway, denoted on tax assessment map as section 3.5, lot 9, lot 5, and located in the B zone, whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application, and there's a list of about 10 forms and sets of plans that we received, whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and the proposed improvement plans, and at their meeting of August 2nd, 2018, held a duly noticed public hearing and all comments were considered, and whereas the planning board has reviewed the staff report prepared by James J. Hahn Engineering dated July 27 for the subject application, and whereas the proposed improvement to this single-family house is a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from further environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application conditioned on the following. Number 1, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and engineering review fees shall be paid, and all items in the village consulting engineer's memo dated July 27th, 2018 shall be addressed to his satisfaction. The following language shall be added to the plan. Approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a resolution dated July 27th, the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry. Any change, erasure, modification, or revision of this plan absent reapproval from the planning board shall void this approval. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall have an effective date of August 2, 2018. I would make the motion. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you brought support. Item 4 on our agenda for the evening is 120 South Lawn Avenue, public hearing for site plan approval for proposed second floor master bedroom addition. Do this in sequence. I would move to open the public hearing. Second. Second. All in favor? Thank you. Finally remember to open it. I like that card with 2 kids. And they must have walked down. That's great. What is this? George, do you have the resolution for this application? I do. Could you favor us? Good evening.
Good evening, my name is Thomas, I'm kind associate, filling in for Rachel Dodge today, and thank good evening. Here to present this project. So we have, master lot addition on the house, in zone OF5. It's basically the composition, not much you can see here because it's overgrown with trees, but this is the second floor extension on the north side of the house.
Sky mist.
With a very small impact to the ground.
It might be a sloping.
It's about 185 square feet. We're also looking for a site approval for this work. Your questions?
Yes, you're showing on this drawing here, this sky exposure plane study. I just wanted to clarify, the extension is extending into that, is that correct?
Yes, there is a slight interference also on the existing mass of the building, interferes with the sky exposure plane as well. So,
And the existing, there where you're showing existing roof beyond, it's actually encroaching further, right? It's a little bit higher. Does that step up?
The existing ridge on top of the roof is higher than
Have you been to the Architectural Review Board?
no.
You have not, because the sky exposure plane is one of their responsibilities, and so they may have comments or requests in that regard.
Although it looks,
We like to keep the mass of the building this way, but we have to change the roof lines.
it looks to me that with the existing structure actually being higher,
That's what it's saying.
that the new structure, or the new portion of the structure won't make the sky exposure plane violation any worse.
Okay.
That would be my,
So,
And the land drops away in the back there.
It's pretty rough, yeah.
yeah. So, well, we will leave that to our colleagues on the HRB.
Public hearing.
Yeah. It is a public hearing. If there's anyone that wishes to be heard on this application, which is 120 South Lawn Avenue for building a bathroom at the top of their house, this would be a good time to do it. If not, I would move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you. We have a resolution for action tonight. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board resolution granting site plan approval for the construction of an addition to an existing single-family house together with related site work at 120 South Lawn Avenue. Whereas Mitchell Cook, owner's representative.
Koch.
Koch.
it's Koch.
Koch, okay. Has applied for site plan approval to construct an addition and make related site improvements at 120 South Lawn Avenue, denoted on tax assessment maps as Section 3 block lot and in the OF5 zone, whereas the following plans and documents were submitted to the application and lists those. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and the proposed improvements, and at their meeting of August 2nd held a duly noticed public hearing and all comments were considered, and whereas the planning board has reviewed the staff report prepared by James J. Hahn Engineering dated July 27 for the subject application, and whereas the proposed improvement for the single-family property is a Type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from further environmental review, and therefore be it resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application conditioned on the following. 1, all applicable provisions of the village, counties, and state regulations shall be met. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and engineering review fees shall be paid, and all items in the Village Consulting Engineer's memo dated July 27, 2018 shall be addressed to his satisfaction. 3, the following language shall be added, approved, subject to all requirements and conditions of resolution dated July 27 of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, any change, erasure, modification. Why is it dated July 27? Wouldn't August 2nd be better?
Yeah.
Dated August 2nd. Shall void this approval. Be it further resolved, this resolution of an effective date of August 2nd, 2018. I make the motion. Is there a second?
Second. Is that
All in
correct?
favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. Where'd that other go?
55 Walgrove.
Yeah, wait a minute, 120, Item number 5 on our agenda is 55 Walgrove, a public hearing for site plan approval for proposed front porch addition.
That's
Hi again.
a public hearing.
This is a public hearing. I would move we open the public hearing. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Hi. Please.
I'm not sure what I was supposed to say, I'm sorry. I don't think there's any changes I need to make since the last time I was here, so, I don't know.
I would think that'd be about a no, actually.
Did you introduce yourself, this is Karen? This is Mike?
Excuse me?
Sorry, I don't know if she introduced herself, just for the record.
I'm Karen Prince, I'm the owner of 55 Walker.
The public hearing, is there anyone here that wishes to be heard on this application? Thank you. George? The resolution department is to my left. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board?
You have to close the public hearing or?
Well, I would move to close the public, if I didn't already, I would move to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Yeah.
Second, all in favor.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I would make the following motion. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board resolution granting site plan approval for the construction of an addition to an existing single-family house together with related site work at 55 Walgrove Avenue. Whereas Karen Prince, owner, has applied for site plan approval to construct a front porch addition and make related site improvements at 55 Walgrove Avenue and denoted on tax assessment maps as section 3 block and located in OF 6. Whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application, and it lists them. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and the surrounding area and the proposed improvement plans, and at their meeting of August 2nd, 2018, held a duly noticed public hearing and all comments were considered. And whereas the planning board has reviewed the staff report prepared by James J. Hahn Engineering dated July 27, 2018 for the subject application, and whereas the proposed improvement to this single-family property is a type 2 action under State Environmental Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from further review. Therefore, be it resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application conditioned on the following: 1, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. 2, prior to the issuance of building permit, all required site plan and engineering review fees shall be paid, and all items in the Village Consulting Engineer's memo dated July 27 shall be addressed to his satisfaction. The following language should be added to the plan. Approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a resolution dated July 20. I still think it's August 2nd.
It is August 2nd.
It is still August 2nd. Thank goodness. Of the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, any change, erasure, modification, or revision of this plan, absent reapproval of the planning board, shall void the application. Be it further resolved, this resolution shall have an effective date of August 2nd, 2018. I would make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
My arm
Just
is
trying
getting,
to get
my
there.
arm is getting
I'll get
tired.
I'll share the second.
Thank you. It's gonna be a nice improvement to Wallgrove and to your house. That's terrific. Item number 6 on the application is 11 Overlook Road, pre-submission. This is a pre-submission conference for it says the amount of soil to be filled into grade yard up to existing retaining wall. It's perhaps a little different than that, but that's a good start. Sir,
My name is Matthew Pfluger, owner of 11 Overlook Road.
I'm sorry, are you the owner or representing the owner?
I am the owner.
You are the owner, thank you.
There is an existing retaining wall that's severely leaning on the west side of the property that we would like to replace, and in addition, extend the retaining wall across the backyard on the north side of the property in order to level it. The backyard hasn't been touched in 20 years, and it's severely sloping and eroding.
So this is basically a fill
New retaining wall.
and then a retaining wall to fill.
Correct. At the maximum height will be about 5 feet, and then it will slowly decrease in height to the side of the property.
As I recall, this goes partially back in your, this doesn't go all the way to the back of your property, or is it parts?
No, if you look on the, sorry, I don't bring a digital. If you look on the survey and then the plans submitted, you can see that it's less than half of the property.
This is the one we're looking at.
Usually there's engineering drawings and so forth. Is an engineer going to retain on this?
A question about the easement. The easement that goes across the center of the backyard. What's that for?
That was established in 1962 when the property was built. It's pure drainage, and it's just supposed to prevent people from moving that part of the property. However, if anybody could pay that easement, although our property obviously has.
I see the easement down at the bottom for services, I think, right?
Yeah, that's, I think the standard 10-foot easement off of the property.
And over at the right side of the plan here, these are stairs. There's like a little landing and stairs down to the lower level. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, the wall should be about 3 to 2 feet, so just a couple of steps using the existing material retaining wall.
And you're going to lose, looks like a couple of trees here, or?
Yeah, so the yard hadn't, like I said, been touched in 20 years. Several trees were rotten and have actually already been taken down.
So
Yeah, there's another tree that will survive all that.
You say the trees have been cut? Was that approved by the village? Did you get permits to do that?
No, unfortunately, we're new owners, and we had someone come out and inspect the trees, and they said those trees have to be taken down, and we didn't realize we needed a permit to take down trees at the time, so my apologies.
Sorry, the dimensions, the 5 foot on here, that's the drop from the top of the wall down?
Correct.
And what's behind here?
With the doors, it butts up against neighbors on Henry Court.
I think the village engineer may have some comments regarding water retention and water control, just because of working in that area.
Yes. This is a pre-submission, and we didn't get the opportunity to review this.
Okay.
So, yes, we'd like to comment on it and discuss this with the building inspector, and possibly, go out there and take a look
Okay.
and see what impacts are downstream.
Yeah. Because it looked to me like and the reason you're leveling it is the water does go down the land
Yeah,
goes
it's-
downhill, so the water flows downhill, and
Right, yeah.
So-
Like I said, it's been eroding for
Yeah.
years, so we want to,
okay.
not only correct the drainage,
Yeah.
but beautify.
So when you say correct the drainage, you don't show any drainage on your site plan. So we need to see that for the public hearing. We also need to see cross-sections of your wall, how you intend to build it. And the height, if the height is in fact 5 feet at any portion of the wall, that plan needs to be stamped and sealed by a licensed engineer. And so you may want to think about lowering it. And you might want to think about replanting some trees on the downhill side of the wall to buffer its appearance. And pick up some more of that sheeting rainwater that was picked up by the former trees.
Yeah, it's our intention to, replanting trees.
So that's good, so
Obviously,
if you could show that on your plan.
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah,
We were planning.
yeah, you can actually see the sill down on Henry.
I mean, if you have additional questions, I would suggest you meet with the village and with the building inspector and make sure it's clear what our requirements will be and what his are for your next, for the next meeting.
Is it, do you think the area of this east, I mean, how far back do you think the fill will go? I mean, ultimately, is it gonna come up to your wood deck or just halfway, or what would be your expectation?
I believe it's probably, the fill's probably really gonna start right past the drainage easement, because that's where this, it really starts to slope off. And right there, we're trying to get it to, if you see on the survey where it says 286, we're trying to get it like 284, so.
And how did you determine this line here? Is there something we should know?
No, it just looks natural and nice, and it goes with the property, because as, like I said, the wall, its height on the west side is 5 feet, and it goes down in height as it goes east, so just look good in there.
Okay.
So, yeah, it doesn't look like a whole lot of fill if you you're filling in basically, what is that, the east corner,
From the west corner would be the deepest part.
oh, yeah, the west corner.
It's about 45 cubic.
Yeah. It's gonna be a great sled jump for your kids.
Yeah, it'd be like I said. Only one thing bigger.
Right. No, I looked in Google Earth and I saw actually the silt down on Henry Court, probably washing off of your property.
Yeah, that's, it's, like I said, the previous owner didn't touch it for 20 years, and they should have done something about it.
Right.
Ed, is there a requirement for fencing along a drop of a certain height?
Not if it's just a lawn, if it's, you create a patio or something where people are intended to utilize it for something like that, yeah, you'd need a guardrail, but just for.
Landscape, you can have a
landscaping,
5-foot drop, no problem,
Yes.
okay.
We were planning to add some natural fencing.
Vegetation or something, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would move that we have a call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Just to have some drawings though, right?
I do have a question, though.
Yeah.
If I look at the topo lines here, I mean, I see 274 come down to the left-hand corner. I don't know if that's the south side. And if you're gonna fill it to 284, you know, that's actually gonna be a 10-foot drop.
No, it's,
on that on the left-hand
it's
corner.
284, right?
No, he's saying the bottom corner currently, the
Oh.
drop off, here, you're correct, yeah.
Oh, but his wall is only halfway, it's halfway up the property.
Yeah, the walls that, at the furthest north-hand corner, north-hand corner, is that topo line 274. And we'd like to keep it
274.
to around 2, you know.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
So the wall's not level, it follows the slope to some extent, left to right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's why the wall on the
Oh, I see what you're saying,
northern west
yeah.
corner is 5 feet, that's the tallest.
Yeah.
And and then it slopes down. We can obviously make the wall as short as we want. We just like to have a yard that isn't, you know, you're not falling downhill, but it's obviously still downhill for drainage purposes.
Ed, oh, I'm sorry.
I'd just say the plan you should reflect what that's really gonna look like from a topo standpoint.
It'll say top of wall, bottom of wall, all along the length of it, it'll say a number of spots. I said in your drawing, your next submission should say, you know, top of wall and bottom of wall at a number of points along the length of it, so we can tell what the drop-off is.
Good. So, we call for a public hearing?
You did mention it.
Okay. Yeah, we did. So, we have public hearing in our next meeting. Good. Good. Look forward to it. See you then. Thank you. The next item, item 7 on our agenda is 84 Maple Street, a pre-submission conference for site plan review for proposed 2-story addition and rear deck.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Louis Macchiato, I'm with the firm of Noble, Gary and Pacello. Represent Ilya Bomish and John Davis and Andre Nestor, they're here tonight too. They've been before the architectural review board with their architect, and they've been before the zoning board with their architect. And there was a bit of a miscommunication, so I'm here tonight to help them with the process and help them a little bit to get ready for this pre-submission. And Ilya will tell you about what he plans to do.
Hey.
So, we're talking about some construction that we're looking to do at 84 Maple Street.
Could you use the microphone for the recording?
You have to say who you are and where you, and your address and stuff.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ilya Bonash, the owner of 84 Maple Street. The construction we're proposing, so we moved into the house about 2 years ago. That's Maple Street in another part of town. It is a 2-bedroom, one bathroom house, and so at that point we had a daughter, and now we also have a son. And so the construction we'd like to do is essentially adding a second floor.
He's making his pitch.
Adding a second floor addition in the rear. That would be a master bedroom and a master bath. And then adding a deck in the rear and adding a powder room on the first floor. So that would take the house from 2-bedroom, 1 bath to 3-bedroom and 2.5 bath. I'm happy to say a little bit more about the design and.
No, it looks like a very functional design. I've driven by the property, and I know the property, and I think that would be a nice addition there. Anything that strikes you on this?
I think Louis needs some context, a little more context to the neighborhood, I think, than this, but other than that, it's pretty thorough.
No, it's,
I think it would be good to show you're showing the new side yard setback at 3 feet. And at the sort of worst-case scenario, it would be good to know what it is at the other end, even though it's less than the 2.2. I'm sorry, it's more than 2.2. It's clearly, 4 feet something.
Sorry, that was the setback on which side?
at the Maple Street?
You're showing here your side, obviously, all this is totally out of, beyond setback, but presumably your deck is at 3 foot. It would be good to know what this is here. That would be good annotation to have.
Yep.
So does this need to go for variances?
Have you been to
You've
the?
received the variance, yes.
Yeah, that's yes?
That is
Yeah,
correct.
he has the variances, good. Have you been to the architecture review board at this point?
Yes, it's been approved by the architect.
It's been approved by them. That's helpful, thank you. I've gone by the property, I understand how it fits in, and it's, I think it'll be largely invisible from the street and will not be it won't burden the property owner next door, I think. So I think it's gonna be a great addition for your family and for the village.
Is there anything you would like to see for the public submission?
I think also if you were to show the neighboring properties on your site plan, that's mostly what we're interested in.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could see.
Maybe in the elevation, oftentimes, see a steep elevation,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
You can see that on the
It's-
Google
it's a
Maps
pretty-
pretty too.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty elevation.
And the sky exposure plane issue, well, the AHRB already knows about it, and they realize it's not
That's-
possible to do it.
That's their responsibility.
Right.
This is a pre-submission conference. I would make a motion that we call for a public hearing at our August meeting, no, our September meeting.
Yeah.
Yep, September meeting. Second. All in favor? Aye. Look forward.
So I think the only comment is to have some of the neighboring properties, because you might get comments from the neighbors about it, so.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
My first time here, when does that notice have to get out?
Whoa.
Out in public hearing?
only gonna be a week, but
When does this notice have to get out before the public hearing?
Pat Harney will take care of that.
He's saying, when does it have to go out?
And when's the mailing have to get out?
The mailing needs to be done minimum 10 days before to the neighbors.
Thank you very much.
Pat Harney takes care of the public notice.
Item 8 on our agenda this evening is 289 Clinton Avenue, reapportionment of existing lot lines to include neighboring properties.
Good evening, my name is Mark Silverman, I'm the owner of 289 Clinton Avenue, and my good neighbors are here, the Biles from 9 Beachdale. Currently, the property line between our two properties kind of does a zigzag, where our property kind of juts right into their backyard, and a portion of their property juts into our backyard. So we are proposing to give them 1,000 square feet of our property, and they are proposing to give us 1,000 square feet of their property to make this better for both families.
How many years has it taken to come to this solution?
Well, the Biles have lived there a lot longer than I have, so maybe that answers this question. We're very laid back, so. Are there any questions? Both parties support this.
Yeah, well,
No, that's a first. Just like that to be
Just-
noted.
just looking at the, what was submitted, it makes perfect sense, and, you know, how it got cut up that way originally, who knows, but,
On different lots, yeah.
so,
Do you mind, sorry, do you mind just clarifying parcel 8 and 10? Or, what I guess I'm not clear on is where the property line is now. It goes this way and
It
up?
shows it on the survey. there.
It's a little dotted
If
line
you take a look, it shows the line to be removed.
it's this one.
on this one.
It's this one right here. This, and it goes up and it goes over.
Okay.
So you're trading this little triangle for that little triangle. Or
Yeah,
vice-
the other line's shown in the same density, so it might be good to make that clear.
Well, I don't know the formality of this. I think we'll call for a public hearing at our next meeting and move forward.
Darius, do we need any?
Unless we can do it faster than that.
We already sent out pre-notice to all the neighbors that anybody's could come tonight.
Do they need
You can't, yeah, our code doesn't have a,
expedited?
right, you gotta do the plat and get it, you can combine the preliminary and the final, but it's gotta be done via plat and re-signed.
Okay.
Is there any other documentation they need to bring besides what we're seeing here? Any letters, notarized, I don't know.
They have to, the public hearing, though, you need to just comply with 354. Like, no.
Oh, there it is.
And you gotta provide for me the deeds, the transfer deeds, so I can see those and make sure that they are, proper concur with the meets and bounds of the description of the properties, because you gotta transfer them. So I could just sign off on them.
Is that from the surveyor or?
The surveyor will provide the meets and bounds, but your lawyer will probably have to provide the written deed, the instrument.
So the next step is to show the deeds to you.
That you need to bring to the village, yeah. Try to get it to the building department, and I'll get it from them. And then secondly, you gotta comply with the subdivision provision of the code. I don't think what I saw was enough, George, unless you, I didn't see everything on it, but
It's,
355.
there's not much to see.
No.
But you know,
So you're gonna have to file a plat with the county.
County, yeah.
Before the meeting or afterwards?
Afterwards.
But you gotta show what's required on the 355. It's a little more complicated than, some places you can just move the line and you're done in a meeting, but we don't have that expedited procedure here. We're
but they
thinking
don't,
about changing it, but
So who will guide us to all these next steps? We can go to the building department or?
they will, but you may wanna hire a professional.
In the next
Maybe
meeting.
you have
It's
to.
not just that it's done. You
I
need,
know we need to file with the county and make it official and all
Let
that.
no good deed go unpunished.
I would recommend them hiring some sort of professional. There's one here who can help you, or others, two here that can help you.
Unless somebody's a lawyer, and maybe they could help.
Yeah,
you.
maybe,
Or
you
a
can
lawyer.
get- maybe you can get that guy from the last project.
Yeah, he can help
He
you.
didn't have enough work.
You can do the deed probably.
but we don't need anything from the bio, I mean, we have one applicant, which is one party. We don't need something in
There's a
confirmation.
letter in there from them saying they approve.
Consent to the neighbor, yeah.
They have letters.
Thank you, there he is.
Quick, get him. Your lawyer's waiting for you out there.
You're looking for a lawyer.
All right.
We still need to set a public hearing for this?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Next meeting.
that was our intent. If we didn't do it, that's our intent, is to have a public hearing at the September meeting. Okay, 189,
Yeah, 100 Baines.
huh? No.
We're gonna
We're
jump.
moving 189 Northfield Avenue up,
Okay.
So the project is actually gonna help clean up the streetscape as well. You can see this is kind of unkept in here, so it'll really neaten it up. It'll provide additional snow storage for the village. And speaking of the village, because the walls and the improvements are within the village street right away, we met with the village board last month to basically get their blessing, because it will have to be in agreement with the applicant for doing this work and maintaining it in the village street right away. And I just have a photo here of the next door neighbor's walls, which is really what we're proposing here. You see it's a stone-faced wall along the street, about 4 feet high, and then the second wall comes up. And they even have arborvitae's as well, so we're kind of continuing that same look right next door.
Well, it's hard to believe that the current situation was approved. I would
It really is. It's the steepest driveway I've ever seen in my life.
was hate to say, I hate to say I was here when it was done.
Before Monday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What is the grade of the driveway now?
It's about 30% right off the street. We're all hanging down the driveway.
How could the car-
We're piling up in winter time.
I mean, how can the car?
What will be the grade once you adjust it?
It's gonna be somewhere around 20%.
Finally get one of those
18 to
car
20
commercials.
for the most part. And another nice thing about the project, it actually reduces, it's kind of a sea of pavement out there right now. It's a little hard to see, it's very light. But on this side here, we're gonna plant this with either grass or ground cover we have pulled out, whatever the applicant likes. But this is all pavement right now, all the way up to the house. So it's really gonna improve the whole look of the property and make it safer as well.
And it's better, there's still, the driveways in that section of North Hill are still very challenging.
I want to bury that.
This is an improvement, but it is what it is,
Yeah.
for sure.
How much rock is in the road?
Okay.
The contractor
This
told me
one's good.
there's no rock there, so we're not anticipating it. It sure looks like
No
it could be
rock.
a big rock.
What contract was it? Whole neighborhood's one big rock.
Yeah, it looks
It
like
is.
it to me. But of course, if we have to do any rock excavation, permits are required in the village. If we have that on, it's a standard note.
I'm having a little trouble reading this. What is your elevation at curb compared to your elevation at the bottom of the first retaining wall?
We have a half-foot pitch from the bottom of the retaining wall to the top of the.
Over that 5 feet?
Yeah, about 5 feet, so.
Good.
Just the pitch of the water, each unit will still have a relatively flat.
Is that a new set of, I'm sorry, steps on the right, or that's existing?
They're moving them. The existing ones go over the
Basically,
property
removing
line.
the steps that are there and putting them back, but on our property. And the steps are still gonna be probably concrete, similar to what they look like now, but we just want to correct that situation.
Are you leaving the gargoyle light posts?
No, the light posts are actually coming out. They're shown here.
I don't know if approved is the right word, but I take it that the Board of Trustees is allowing this to be done in the right-of-way, subject to,
The Board of Trustees will vote on allowing this encumbrance on the right-of-way after your recommendation.
after our recommendation, okay.
And they will need a, like you said, a license agreement
Yeah.
that'll be filed with the county clerk, that they'll have to maintain it, provide insurance, et cetera. We did this.
Do we have, you probably haven't looked, but there's several other properties that have the same thing. Do we have all the proper documents on that, I think?
Well, these were all built years ago. I mean, even on, a few years ago, or last year, we did it on, Bradley, up by the hospital. When Paul Petretti had that, we did it there. They built the retaining wall
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the,
yeah.
and a driveway,
Yeah,
remember?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's sort of a, you know, whether it's necessary or not, but it probably is more protective for the village to do
Well, I think
that
it
way.
is. I mean, I can't imagine when the village is gonna wanna widen Northfield, but
Probably not.
But the question always remains is if something happens to the wall and it needs to be repaired, it's not the village's responsibility.
Yeah, which is the important part.
right, that's true.
And,
Or if the wall were to damage something or injure someone.
you don't see any issue in, I mean, one good thing about, I guess, the current situation, or less bad, is that as you come out of the garage, it's relatively level, so now you're coming out and dropping more quickly at that point.
Right, now we discussed that with the applicant, and so right now, they haven't been using the garage, but now they're gonna probably store the cars in the garage. Right now, they pull in and kind of leave them on a glass bottom, now they're gonna be encouraged to actually put them in the garage. Because you're right, it won't be quite as comfortable as it is now on top.
And so I mean, I just imagine it's a little hard to see over the hood of your car as you're coming on a 20% slope into the garage.
Yeah, it actually flattens out a bit as we get to the garage.
Okay.
It's not 2%, it's 20.
It may show up in the papers and I've missed it, but are they putting a heating system in the driveway to melt the snow?
We don't have that proposed at this time.
If there was ever a place that should have such a thing, this might be it.
Yeah.
Just, I didn't even think about that.
Have a rope. They'll keep the rope.
Well, I mean, the problem is there's very little street parking on Northfield. It's not a particularly wide street, so people of necessity have to put their cars in their garage. And it snows here.
Maybe.
Maybe, no more snow. Any other questions? If not, I would call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Actually, I have a question. Is there actually something in the code that talks about maximum driveway grades?
This, in the code, it talks about maximum grade that would be suitable for parking, which is no more than 5%. Maximum design is up to usually set by our consulting engineer at like 14 or 15, I think.
Yeah, we came across this before, and we mentioned it at one of the other meetings, and we've actually polled a lot of the communities in Westchester and whatnot, what everyone does. And 14 is generally what people go to. 12 is preferred, 10 is even better. But try not to set a standard, because you get a property like this, and it's basically undevelopable. If you said it's 12%, you couldn't build anything on this property. You'd be taking out a lot of material here just to build a parking lot. So they intentionally don't put a limit, and they take it case by case by case.
Okay, so a variance is not required.
No, so if you were trying to do a site plan for like a new building or something, or you're trying to use the driveway as your required 2 parking spaces, you wouldn't be able to. So you'd have to have a 2-car garage to get your 2 off-street parking spaces. So they have that, it's existing, they need this kind of grade to get up to their house and get to their garage.
I think the key is existing.
Yeah.
It's actually making it better.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
We've already noticed for a public hearing for this.
I'm sorry?
Public hearing, have we,
Yeah, we've already noticed for this.
I don't know.
Were we on call?
We're gonna call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
did you notice for a
So-
public hearing in August, or?
Your notice is fine, it continues.
It continues.
You don't have to notice again.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would move that we call for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
You're probably not getting on the Board of Trustees agenda until September anyway, so it won't matter.
Okay, this comes first. Good.
This comes first, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Should we build this?
Troy, didn't I-
Yeah, I think so.
We've done that. We've done that. on 4 Florence, do you have,
We closed that plan center, got from design. Here representing the Cozos. At the last meeting, we closed the public hearing. Then you didn't have a resolution prepared. So if you've got a resolution prepared, it would seem to be the next step.
this is 4 Florence.
We are done with it.
I don't know.
Just get the resolution, man, just pawn it out.
Resolution for.
Just happened.
Well, it was an email.
No, wait a minute. This is, yeah, it's the right one. This is a continuation of public meeting. I would move that we open the public hearing. Is there a second?
You actually closed the public hearing at the last meeting.
My agenda says continuation of public hearing. Regardless of what we did, that's what it says.
Well, that would be a mistake on our clerk's part. So the notes show that the public hearing was closed at the last meeting.
Okay, all right, sorry.
No, it's open once.
So I think we were close last time, and there were some questions that the village engineer had, some issues. I just want to make sure we've covered everything that,
They submitted a letter.
Yeah, they submitted a letter, they addressed, all the comments except for 2, and we spoke earlier to Ed about the first one, which was the steep slopes, and since the addition is over an existing portion of the building, and there's no additional square footage that would impact the reduction due to steep slopes, so therefore, it should be okay.
There was also one issue about Howard County pervious and impervious. I'm still under the assumption decks are pervious if they're not solid.
Right, if you've got open space underneath it, water can sheet underneath it.
Yeah. So that's how we filled it out, but we're still fine if it's pervious, impervious. So either way, and I don't think you want to look at Hastings, so.
don't go there. Don't go there. Are there any questions or comments on 4 Florence by the board? I would move we close the public hearing, or if we've already done it, I move it anyway. All right. I have a resolution for 4 Florence. Village Godfrey Planning Board resolution granting site plan approval for the construction in addition to an existing 2-story house together with related site work at 4 Florence Avenue, whereas Diane and Barry Kozo, owners, have applied for a site plan approval to construct an addition and make related site improvements at 4 Florence Avenue and denoted on tax assessment maps as section block lot located in MDR1 district, whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application and lists the several things we've received, whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and the proposed improvements, plans, and at their meeting of July 12th. All right, July 12th, held a duly noticed public hearing, and all comments were considered, whereas the planning board has reviewed the staff report prepared by James J. Hahn Engineering dated July 27, 2018 for the subject application, whereas the proposed improvement to this single-family property is a type 2 action under the state Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, and therefore attempt for further environmental review. Therefore, be it resolved, the planning board of the village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application conditioned on the following. 1, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. 2, prior to the issuance of the building permit, all required site plan and engineering review fees shall be paid, and all items in the village consulting engineer's memo dated July 27, 2018 shall be addressed to his satisfaction. 3, the following language shall be added to the plan. Approved subject to all requirements and conditions of a resolution dated July 27, 2018.
That should be, sorry, August 2nd.
I know. It's consistently wrong, you're consistent, George, I'll say that. Of the planning board of the village of Dobbs Ferry, any change, erasure, modification, revision of this plan, absent reapproval from the planning board shall void. Be it further resolved, this resolution shall have an effective date of August 2, 2018. I would make the motion, is there a second?
Sorry, can I just have one?
One.
On the drawings is shown an alternate scheme, right, for the downstairs. For the- Right, in the middle of one plan, right here on the first floor, entry alternate. That is not being proposed.
I think it was a subsequent drawing that was submitted. We've been to the architectural review board, we know which one we're planning to do, which, I guess the easiest way.
Is not the alternate. I just want to be
Yeah, it's
clear for
not,
the
it's
record.
the one that's, this one.
Correct, yes. So, we might make that exception in the final notes, that it's not including the alternate.
Sure.
Sorry. Continue.
Be it further resolved, this resolution have effective date of August 2. I would make the motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
And it told me not to go ahead.
The only other item on our agenda is item 9, 100 Main Street, referral from the Board of Trustees for site plan review for proposed addition and renovations.
This is a project they were, before you 2 years ago. It was actually before you 4 years ago. I'm gonna try to walk through pretty quickly, I think. This is something we saw a long time ago, which was the list of all the different things we've done. Of course, now we're up to SPM, which is a significantly different design than what you recommended for approval. So quick, I don't know, we don't need to spend time on this. It's just showing the problem we're dealing with. This June 24th, 2015, was the joint memo from the planning board and the AHRB. In that, you guys kind of gave us a very specific direction. We moved forward with that direction, and eventually, we ended up with a design that you recommended be approved. And that was, we went to the Board of Trustees after that, and the Board of Trustees asked us to go to the Architectural Review Board. We went to the Architectural Review Board, and in August of that year, the Architectural Review Board appeared to take an action on it, which is that they said that they're not gonna do anything more on this until the site plan has been approved. We then tried to get on the agenda of the Board of Trustees, and it became an issue about the historic character of the existing structure that's to the east. And we ended up going through a process with the Architectural Review Board in September and October 2000, I forget the years right, 2016. And what the decision at that point with the Architectural Review Board was that they were gonna hire a consultant to do an assessment of the back structure. That consultant was hired that next May, and they produced a report. Actually, this is just your minutes where you recommended approval on May 5th, 2016. This was the report that was filed with the village, prepared by Historic Perspectives, and they determined that they did a very thorough analysis. If you haven't seen the report, it's worth reading. They talked about the era that certain components would be from. The earliest that they went to was, I think, 1908. There was elements that couldn't be older than 1908. They went other elements that I think were 1924, maybe 26, something like that. And then they also noted that there was some evidence in the form of a permit They also, at the same time, I think that would have been a good step, would have been sufficient, but what they also did is they reduced the height in the downtown from 4 stories to 3 stories. Every code before that was 4 stories. This is the first time docks is limited to 3. And they changed it from 50 feet to 40 feet. So we had a design that had been recommended for approval by the planning board. We were told we could not go further with the board of trustees unless we got a variance. We actually made a presentation in February 2018, and they indicated to us that the preferred method was to go for a variance. We went to the zoning board, and very supportive of why I'm saying this. It's because these guys have a recommendation. I couldn't understand why we're back. So in April, we went to the zoning board. The zoning board made the determination that they would not grant the variance, despite the fact that the village had powers to grant waivers, and they had just adopted this law. They weren't going to take a de novo position on what should be on the site. So they denied a variance for the height and for the setback that would have permitted us to do the plan that was recommended for approval by your board. What we next did is we came in and made changes to the plan. We moved, this is kind of hard to read, I guess it's going to be better. This done, or this kind of boulder is the existing retaining wall on the Acrobat property. We moved the building minimum 10 to 6 away from the property line that we would comply with the new required setback. We have a total of either 6 or 7 parking spaces on the site, depending on whether or not we're required to have a handicap space. Let's see if I can read this, is kind of a little bit better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 with the space. If we don't have that space, we actually have 3 spaces there and 4 spaces there. And we've got 6 curbside spaces around the property, all of which factors into the way the code is written, decisions that need to be made by others, not myself, of how the parking can work, but it appears, and I'll get to it in a minute, that we comply with what we're proposing to do. We've looked at 2 different sets, 2 different kinds of plans, and this is pre-submission conference, so part of what we're doing is, which way would you like us to go? We can do 3 townhouses, with duplex units, or we could do 4 units. If it's 3 duplex units, it would be 3 2-bedrooms. If we do 4 units, it's 3 2-bedrooms and 1 1-bedroom. We're really, either one can work. So if there's a concern with excessive density, people think 4 is just overwhelming, you've got the 3 options. If you remember back, we originally had 4 at one point, and a story was eliminated, cutting us back to 3. So, we have something similar at that point. The massing of the building has changed relatively dramatically. Here's the property line. One of these, I don't know if you can see it, but the existing building is actually sitting right in here.
It's dotted on our
Yeah.
elevation.
So we're about where the ridge is now of that building. It's a flat roof structure because we're at the 40-foot line measured from the street. So we can't, and there's no provision in the new measurement that allows you to measure to the midpoint of the pitched roof. So there's nothing we can do to somehow make that work differently. Basically, you've got 1 level of parking with 2 levels of residential units above. This is not meant to be like, here's our final design of some sort. It's something, it's a placeholder. We've broken it, the massing into 3 elements. We think it's appropriate to have this not read as 1 large block. Whether this is brick and brick or brick and stucco or some combination, those are all things that can be discussed as we go forward. That's actually easier to read. Entrance here comes in, staircase to the 2nd floor. From that, it's either entrances to the 3 duplex units, or it's the entrance to 2 units and a stair up and the entrance to 2 more units. This is where actually the current walkway is much narrower than this to get to those apartments. So you'd still walk up this way if you're coming from the sidewalk to get into the 2 duplexes that are in the existing building, or you can walk into the driveway area and walk over. So you would not need to negotiate stairs to get into the ground floor of these units, which is our reason for assuming that we may be required to provide a handicap space. And of course, whether that handicap space should be in two-story structure. This shows the section. This is the plan if it was flats instead of duplexes, but nothing really changes on the building other than the configuration of windows on the back. Here are the layouts, those. And this gets to parking, and one of the issues, I think, for Mr. Manley, I need to get this kind of resolved with him, one interpretation or the other. If I read section 300-48.B26, or 2B, it basically says that I don't need to provide parking for the existing structures. We have been told, I haven't gotten copies of the leases yet, which I need to get because I'm sure that Darius would want to look at it, that there's no provision for the existing residents there to be using the parking. So it's not part of their lease, they've asked for it, they've said, look, we don't care as long as you're not in the way.
Their lease has nothing to do with it. You don't have to provide new parking
Right.
for any of the existing use, but you need to maintain the existing parking you have, and there has been 3 parking spaces on that site as long as I can remember. So you need 5 for the new, you need to maintain the 3 that you have, so you need 8, and that's
Okay.
final decision.
Sorry, five is based on how many units?
They have 3 2-bedrooms, so 1 per unit plus a quarter per bedroom.
Yeah, something I didn't mention is what month of April, when the code was changed again in terms of parking. The parking requirements used to be for mixed-use buildings, it was 1 space per unit. The code changed to now it's 1 space per unit plus 0.25 unit or spaces for each bedroom. So if you have 6 bedrooms, you need 1.5 parking spaces plus the number of units. So you have 4.5 parking spaces required.
Rounded up.
Well, do you round up before you do the total? That won't make a difference, Bob.
No. It's
You
4.5,
got
once you hit 0.5, you round up.
Yeah, and you need 3 for the existing building.
0.25, you round down, 0.5, you round up.
Right, so at that point, would be 7.5, rounded up to 8.
Correct.
And we either have 6 or 7, depending on whether we have a handicap. So we would need consideration of 1 or 2, either pilots or use of curbside. As I said, we have 6 curbside parking spaces now. So allocating 2 of those for this would not seem to be inappropriate.
Does it change if you have 4, you mentioned 4 2-bedrooms also in another house?
No, 3 2-bedrooms and 1 1-bedroom, or if you wanted to keep the counts of bedrooms the same, it could be 2 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. That's an alternative.
So your plan now is 3 2-bedrooms?
Right.
Okay, and if something
The 3
changes, the parking
2-bedrooms
will
are
change.
larger, so if somebody was saying we'd rather have more smaller units, the 4 is an appropriate way to look at it. But that's,
And-
as we've said, we're willing to consider either. Rob knows what I'm talking about.
And what is what are the conditions governing the use of the curb frontage parking lots? I forgot, what is
The
Street
Board of
parking. The
Trustees
street.
can allow credit for every 20-something foot
5 feet
of
of
space, you could allow 1 parking space, if the Board of Trustees chooses to, it's under their
Right.
discretion, or they could, under their discretion, could give a pilot.
Yeah, for every 25 feet of frontage, it decreases.
Frontage, and what about signage?
It's a,
Well,
what's it,
it's-
signage?
It's adjoining the property, street curb adjoining the property.
It's 348H1.
So these 6, do you take any issue with the 6 spaces he's indicated? They
Yeah,
exist?
it's 2 more.
No,
So-
I'm sorry,
No, the
No, no, no.
the 6 on the 6 street.
There's 6
side-
existing
6 street
on-street.
parking, that's
6
accurate, correct?
off-site parking.
And so it's to the Board of Trustees whether they elect to allow counting of that.
And you could make a recommendation on what you
Okay,
prefer.
and can you remind us how the pileup works?
Pilot would be 5,000 space going into a fund for village parking
One-time payment,
Yep.
before issue of a permit.
right?
5,000 a space if
Yeah.
you're doing 2.
Yeah,
It goes up
if
to
you're
10.
doing more than 5, it goes up to 10,
And then
more than 10,
15,000.
15,000 a space, but at 2, it's 5,000 a space.
If you remember, we started this looking at 12 units with no parking on site, and what we were offering at that point, I think, was $275,000 to the parking. With the idea that that would lead towards building the deck behind Village Hall, and that's where people would park, and you wouldn't have curb cuts with, way over sidewalks. My personal feeling is that it would be a better way to go, but I don't get to make any decisions, so.
That was then, this is now.
There's a thing with the height, an issue with the height too, does that come down by half a foot or
There wasn't
something?
an issue really with the height, we were showing the parapet at 42 inches. Mr. Manley pointed out to us that if it's over 36 inches, it counts the height, which would put us over, so we reduced the parapet to 36.
Is that right, Mr. Manley?
If that's what he's done on the new plan, yes.
So the total height, to be clear, is 43 feet from,
The total height, by the way the village counts it, is 40 feet, plus a 3-foot parapet, which does not count the height.
There's also another path for the parking. I know there's a procedure for either allowing the parking through certain provisions or a pileup also. There's also the possibility of seeking a variance from the zoning board for the parking. I don't know if you've gone there, I throw it out there.
I haven't gone there, but my personal feeling, knowing the needs of the village, are giving away the spaces with a variance, just seems to be a way of getting out of making a commitment to paying money that could.
Which, maybe that's the better way, just throw it out there as a possibility. And then any other issue, other than the parking, Mr. Manley, and other than the height, which we think is remedied, on the terms of any variances needed from setbacks or for use, is there anything else they need?
I don't understand that.
Or are they as of right, as far as you're concerned, and/or from a use and area perspective?
As far as building notification, we cover everything else.
So the cars are poking out.
Yeah, is it clear in the revised code that a car can be within less than 10 feet from it's the building that counts?
I mean, the cars are right next to the
There's
aqueduct.
nothing in the code that talks about this situation in the business district fronting to the aqueduct about where the cars can be located. There's nothing that says that the cars need to be 10 feet from the aqueduct.
I mean, that,
We would have to be 10 feet from a property, if we were not enclosed, 10 feet from a property that was adjacent to the residential.
I mean, does that make any sense?
So they just poke out, they're just like the noses of the cars are poking out in
Well,
the open?
you wouldn't really, what was happening is you've got about a 1-story change of level from the aqueduct down to the parking level.
Yeah.
So when you're walking by the aqueduct, the screening that we've suggested a fence, we've suggested landscaping, which would help block your view is down into there. If it were up to me, I wouldn't have it exposed, but then I would be having a building that's within the 10 feet.
But Patty, your parking is enclosed though, is that where you're?
Our parking, it has a wall around it on all sides, a portion of it is open to the sky.
so that,
Because if we put
In
a
the
deck
10
on
foot.
that, we would have a building.
so if you were to build a, you see it everywhere in New York, but basically we'll call it a plaza, or you could have some enclosure on there that has ground cover, that you're not extending above grade.
I think that's great. I'd be totally on board with that. It would have to pass the Darius test. If Mr. Chisholm, permit me to approach the if we were to build.
Police here, the police here?
Well,
10 feet
your
back,
expression
10
better.
feet.
I don't have my glasses on. If we were to build
10 feet.
say a concrete deck over the parking that went from the property
Landscaped.
line to the building, and then we did that as a green roof. So that what you would see from the, well, let me get to the end before you shake.
I'm not even shaking.
That's a structure.
Don't even go there.
You got a 10-foot buffer.
The village has done kind of similar stuff before with a low-grade structure.
Which way you putting the deck, towards the aqueduct or away from
We'd
it?
be putting the deck towards the aqueduct to cover it up.
No.
No.
I mean, we've shown what we've shown. We'd be willing to consider other things that.
That wouldn't be compliant. I don't know how it looked, but I don't know if it's compliant.
Yeah, what this board can do, if it so chose, is it can say, we'd really like to have some kind of better screening. There's
Yes.
screening that's currently proposed on the south side, which consists of a trellis, about 5 feet of trellis that prohibits you from being able to see the cars in on that side. So doing something similar with a trellis, we recognize that it is a kind of structure, but we would recommend to the board of trustees that they waive the setback just for that, nothing for enclosed space.
We have no provisions in the code for below-grade structures.
Just structure, doesn't specify above grade or below grade, it's structure.
I mean, New York City, under most of the sidewalks, is vaults and whatever, but, so there's no provision for vault, there's no indication, anything.
Not that
Well,
I
it's a
see.
structure, so.
I would just say
it's
it's a
basement,
structure,
it's a
so
structure.
it needs
And
to
it's
setback.
structure because it's horizontal
Makes no
versus
sense
a
to have
wall is not,
the
a
cars
temple
sticking
wall is
out.
not a structure.
No. But also, I mean, given the fact that a historic district moratorium is sort of in the works, you're just forging ahead with this, I mean, you could be making another 100 more plans here and it wouldn't get you anywhere.
We started this in early 2014, would like to have it come to a conclusion.
Yeah, but you see that, you can tell that the village's, the attitude towards the aqueducts has been changing over the last 2 years. So it's a moving target, and you could just be trying to catch up with this moving target and get ahead with the moving
What's our
target.
alternative?
What's that?
What's the alternative?
Well,
Assume that
you could
some
wait,
village will,
Wait
wait for what?
wait until
Wait
it settles
until
down.
we get something, they've just changed the code, they've said exactly what they want. We're complying with exactly what they said they wanted, and so we're going ahead with what they've said they want. Now, if we propose something and they now change the code again because they don't like that, they want something different,
You'll do something.
as been demonstrated to us, there's nothing we can do about that. So,
Okay,
you know,
you don't wanna wait to see it till it settles down.
I don't think it does. I think we could wait 10 years, and if we came in with a proposal for this property, as long as nothing else changed around it, we would have the exact same objection. So and I happen to think that the design that you guys, I mean, what you guys recommended for approval, my personal feeling was I mean, you know, I don't think it's not me saying we did a great job. I think you guys pushed it in a very good direction, and in many ways forced our hand to do something, which in the end, I think, really worked. Now, if the complaint at one point with the architectural review board is they felt there was too much happening, so if somebody said, well, why don't you just bring this up, eliminate that piece of the roof and have this be a structure there, and don't have a different material here and have that be all stucco or something, those are things that would be of a material nature, but the chairman of the architectural review board wrote an email, which he sent to our trustees, that said this plan concept was so flawed that no detail, massing, material changes could make it any better. So I listened to what they said. The village had already changed its code. We came in with a code compliant.
But what was the reason he said it was, why was it flawed, did he say? I mean, it was,
Because he thought that this massing, which of course was the result of what we were basically told to do by the memo, this massing with showing the structure reminiscent of what's there now, breaking down the scale, it was unsuccessful.
Do you have a similar picture that you're proposing now to that?
I think I can do that if I figure out how to end the show.
Have you been to the ARB yet with the new provision?
No, and I'm kind of willing to do anything that people want, and with one exception. I don't think I'd be willing to go and start trying to have a conversation with the architectural review board on this until there was some indication that we were going either in the right direction or there was some support. I mean, you guys could just decide, you know what, we're not gonna approve it, but what we need, if we're not gonna be approved, we need a denial. Because I can't go anywhere else as long as the process is continuing and has not been denied. So there are remedies that would be positive to investigate, I think, if this was, if we
Is that the building without the barn there?
Yes.
Now, we needed this on a drive to get to the building department, whatever you're showing tonight, we need to see it.
Yeah, I'll give, I mean, I think you've already got the PowerPoint. 'Cause
I know,
that's-
but we gotta have, the building department has to have it.
Here's that.
Right, I'll provide you with a copy of this.
Thank you.
I think, I mean, it doesn't show on that drawing, but the immediate problem is parking cars right next to the aqueduct.
Yeah.
Because you have to build something to park them on.
Steve, I have great respect for everyone who's involved in this process. I go across the street, I've got the village parking lot on the aqueduct. I really have a tough time thinking that 4 cars parked down below with proper screening is such an awful thing if I can have a 100-car parking lot across the street
Yeah,
on
but,
top of the aqueduct.
yeah, but that's apples and oranges. I mean, that parking lot is there and has been there. Now we're looking to see what we can do that is different than that. We're not trying to emulate at the parking lot.
I don't disagree in the idea of us sinking it down in and having it be something that we have a fence that helps obscure it with proper landscaping, the willingness
Or a
to
trellis
continue.
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, but-
I mean, I've thrown out a bunch of things that you guys can say, well, that sounds like a good way to solve it. That way you'd be able to walk through, you wouldn't see, the parking, you wouldn't see down into there from the back.
Well, I don't know what the, what the resolution said about the 10-foot setback, but to me, the 10-foot setback would include cars. Maybe it doesn't read that way, but,
No, it didn't read that one, was that?
I mean, that certainly would be the impression.
It would include structure, which would be
Well,
a
but,
parking deck.
I mean, if you just, anybody thought about it, you wouldn't say, well, you can't have a building, but you're gonna have a parking lot. I mean, that makes no sense at all. To me.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's worse in some ways. This thing went through an evolution, and I sort of have a little sympathy for Patty at this point going through all this. But that wasn't necessarily the planning board's idea that we would create the 10-foot setback. It was kind of some sort of compromise.
Right.
There's some advantages to building right to the zero lot line to totally block parking or anything else like that. There's certain advantages to that. So now we've seen exactly what the disadvantage is. This is a clear case of that. I think it behooves us to come up with a creative solution, which is, I don't know, awnings, they're different materials. I don't know what constitute a building. Is it a tent over the thing? Is that so stupid? What we actually need to be creatively looking at a way to screen the cars. A trellis that actually is at an angle or something so that it actually covers
Or
across.
why
the
not
thing.
just not have them and have you pay for more off-street parking?
The problem, okay, so no parking there, so now you're looking into a pit. So in a way, it's kind of like, what did we think we were doing when we said you had to have a 10-foot setback? Well, okay, so that's gonna be a 10-foot landscape setback. Okay, that's taking, that's an interesting way to go. If we wanted to do that, that would be saying, but within a 10-foot strip, you actually could do some landscaping, that's why. So suppose that was the design guideline, that we're gonna have a setback of 10 feet of building, and there'll be just landscaping in there. That actually would make some sense. That isn't what the code says. They're trying to respond to the code. This has gone through this 10 different evolutions. That would be, I wouldn't have minded having buildings right up to the thing. As people say, oh, we can't do that. I think, we have some already.
Yes.
Actually, all of the properties
Yeah.
along the aqueduct pretty much have structures in the back. This is one of the few that has a building exactly on the aqueduct, not even on its own property.
So at this point, Patty, I think that there's a project in front of us. I think we owe some creative thought to how to screen the parking that's put there. We can comment that we prefer to have nothing, but what's there, we would think needs to be screened, and here's some different ideas. I think that's fair for us to come back with. But just to say now we're gonna wait for the next evolution of zone change. I don't know that's sort of chasing, because this has a route to it now. In my experience, you get to a certain point where you trigger lawsuits, whether anybody's intent was there or not. And this one is at a point where we should give a reasonable process. If it gets turned down, then there's a lawsuit route for them to take. But actually, it didn't get turned down, it just never got voted on. So it seems to me just technically, we need to put the process in, make a decision. And then if the owner decides, heck with it, I'm not gonna do it, if the owner decides there's a lawsuit, whatever happens, but it's a piece of land somebody owns, came forward with a project, it deserves at least denial or approval or something.
You recommended approval in May of 2016. We were not able to go back to the Board of Trustees since then for the application, or the
Well,
design that you recommended.
we're past that now, we have this,
Sure.
and what do we need? We need,
Let's start silence, though, an admission. There were some things happening there, you were at the Board of Trustees, they did look at it, then they asked for some advice from the ARB, and, no, let me finish, so the record is clear. The ARB then did some things at it, and then there were a number of zone changes made at that time, which included a 10-foot aqueduct, which made your project non-compliant, which then you went and sought a variance and were denied, and now you're here. So I don't think you weren't allowed to go to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees did hear it, sought guidance, received guidance, and then you're back here now. So that's actually what happened.
Well, let's be really accurate on the record. When we went to the Board of Trustees, if you watched the tape, they said, this shouldn't come back to us for consideration until we have a recommendation from the Architectural Review Board. We got that recommendation 2 months later, and that's when we were told, no, we don't need an answer from the Architectural Review Board about the design. We're concerned about the historic character of the existing structure.
The previous record is what the record is. I just don't want the record now to indicate that we're agreeing with anything that is said. The record is the record.
Exactly.
A little bit off the subject,
Sorry.
but Darius, I was thinking to go to the zoning board for a variance for the parking, where there's waiver provisions, pileups, and there's calculations by either the planning board, in this case it would be the Board of Trustees, that doesn't sound right. So I don't know if there's a close look at our ordinance to say the zoning board of appeals is there when there is no recourse within the existing structures or something.
I think it has that
Existing
language.
process, that would seem to make sense. And that if they applied for a parking variance where there's a waiver and a pileup, they would be denied because there is another route to get the waiver or the pilot. I just thought.
No, I wasn't espousing the variance.
No, I
just
know,
throw it out
I'm just
there.
thinking it's a little piece
That's
of
one the reasons
clarification.
That's one of the reasons we had the pilot, was
Yes.
so that it wouldn't go to the variance.
Right.
But I was hoping that Darius would take a sort of technical, legal look and say, really, you can't, it would be great to be able to say, you can't apply for a variance where there's a waiver and a pileup and other methods of getting relief from.
I don't disagree that the parking number should be looked at and recommended here.
Right.
The Board of Trustees could say, I disagree, let's just say they say do a pilot. They
Yeah.
could say, no, we're not gonna waive any parking, we're not gonna apply this section of the code for a reasonable reason. And then they could go get a
Then
variance.
they could go for variance,
But,
yes.
it seems to be the location of the parking that is troublesome to looking at from the aqueduct.
This shows, if you were not to have parking in the 10-foot area, where would you be parking
You'd have either two or three parking spaces on site.
on site? So you would
You
need,
lose how many, 3 right now?
4.
You have 4
Probably have
in
the
that
three,
zone.
the 3 that are serving the people there already.
You'd have the 3 that are serving the people already.
yeah.
Basically on the west side of the property.
Correct.
And what would you be looking down into, in a grassy area? A hole.
Okay, well, you could block that off somehow, I mean, it doesn't have to be.
One of the things we agreed to was exposing the retaining wall of the aqueduct and giving them a easement of access to do repairs and maintenance. on
Now,
it.
if you did a trellis, how close could you make that to the aqueduct and still have enough parking?
It wouldn't affect the parking.
Would it affect, how close would it be to the aqueduct? Would they still have a chance to get in there and remedy it if they needed to?
Sure.
Sure, they could be under the
3
trellis.
columns that don't interfere with the parking.
No, and not interfere with the aqueduct, if someone needed to go there.
We could put 3.
Well, why don't you propose some designs for that? I mean, that seems to be an issue for the planning board of what you're
Well-
looking down into.
This is a pre-submission.
No, I mean,
And it makes perfect sense that but so far, it sounded like at least several members of the Board of Planning Board were not thinking that a trellis would make any sense. site? Of course we do.
I think we're open to hear a lot of different suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about when you're walking on the aqueduct, what's the experience?
Patty, I think that sounds interesting, and I'd like to see what it looks like.
You're looking into the restaurant, the Harper's Restaurant, you're looking down, there's people's backyards, you know, there's sort of
It's a
interesting
complete
stuff there.
mixed bag.
There are some cars parked, right
It's a
by
complete,
the
that's what makes it interesting.
headquarters, but, I think that, you know, the least thing you wanna see is parking, you wanna see something more interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a,
If the aqueduct is a historic structure, it'd be nice to sort of keep that.
I mean, I guess you get the dichotomy of, you know, is it better to have the building next to it, the aqueduct, or away from it? Well, the Board of Trustees has said, move it away.
Well, the Board of Trustees adopted a change to the code that requires a 10-foot setback.
Right.
In fairness to this board, if this board, which I don't expect it to do, hopefully would be heroic, if this board were to say, we considered this application incredibly seriously, we made a number of site visits, we came up with recommendations that we think were a good solution for the site, we made a recommendation to you, we would like you to act on that recommendation. Deny it if you will, but we think that.
What, moving it back closer to the aqueduct? I think you gotta stick with it with a as-of-right plan. If you
I
start,
said if they wanted to.
but I don't think that helps you. You're gonna be stuck in mud. This Board of Trustees is most likely not gonna even consider that. So I think you gotta work within the framework of a as-of-right proposal.
Which is why we're here with what we've got, but Steve was suggesting that he doesn't think this is a great approach, so we should wait until the next iteration of zoning in the Village of Dobbs Ferry.
Well, it is, I think it's a changing landscape, and it's up to you. I mean, you're doing, you're
Yeah,
gonna do what you want, but,
I believe.
you know,
that-
just looking at the history of what, you know, all the machinations
Why
you've
don't
gone
I-
through, it seems like a changing landscape, and I think some of it is from 66, 68. You know, people saw that building and they realized they wanted, you know, they wanted a different experience along the aqueduct.
Although it's always interesting when you see the uproar at when something's starting and people are all freaking out, and then you start getting the responses after something's up. When that was being built, I had people walking up to me in the supermarket saying that building's too big. Now that it's up, I don't get that anymore. I have people walking up and saying, that's come out really nicely. So there is a battle of different opinions, and one of the things we're seeing tremendously right now in the Village of Dobbs Ferry is an enthusiasm for positive future. You know, we all know that we've got an expiration date, basically, on these communities, that's either 2020 or 2025, depending on what you see happening, that we're either gonna be the community that has all of those things in it, so we get bypassed the way we did with the HUD settlement, or else we'll be one of those communities that's building 4 30-story towers in our park at the waterfront, because we have to provide affordable housing, because it's mandated by the state, and the UDC comes in and does their thing. We've already looked at that. I've already seen a drawing of the river towns with buildings proposed along the water station. So,
we're going
yeah, we're getting.
way off. I mean, I like this discussion, but it's not now, and it's not here.
So, the question was asked a little earlier, we've got 3 structural components in our building. So if we aligned a post with each one of those 3 and did a beam on top of it, we could put that trellis in without disturbing the parking spaces, and we could go with an overhang with the trellis so that it would actually be, say, maybe 4 feet still.
Why don't you
5 feet.
propose some ideas, different ideas at the board? I think the chairman indicated they'd like to see a few different things. If you have some ideas.
Well, that's the one I think that we've talked about enough that I think it makes sense. Is there, you know, Ed was pretty adamant that we don't have provisions for vaults, because, you know, that worked out very well down at, you know, at 66, 68. You walk by there, you've got a structure that comes straight across the building, so you don't see all the cars parked down below. You know, so I think that did work. You know, if you walked along here and this was more like a terrace with planters on it, that could be, that would solve all people's concerns.
Is it fair to say that the planning board has some jurisdiction on things like that and things like the roof slope and so forth?
You recommend,
You could recommend the ideas to the
I mean,
Board of
my sense
Trustees.
is that this flat parapet thing is horrible.
Is
A flat roof building?
This flat roof cornice thing, and, you know, it looks like it's trying to be on Main Street, it's not.
Well, that's, I would
Funny, I don't
tend to agree. But do I suggest it? Or does it, like your memo that you did before, are we given instructions that say we prefer something that breaks the massing down so that the roof lines of the building respect the sense of scale that's articulated for those lines? Sounds like a cool idea.
so
We would
it's,
violate the height.
so if you pitched, you're commenting on the flatness of the roof. If the roof was pitched,
I think the flatness of the facade, the flatness of the roof, I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like it is consistent with what's across the street.
Yeah.
now if you pitch the roof, are you above the height?
Yeah.
And that's because
Well,
of the new.
it depends where you
code.
take it, if you take it down to below the windows, and those are dormer-type windows, your perception of the height, go to
We've
the,
got an 8-foot ceiling,
go to
which
the,
is the deck of the roof.
go to the Elm Street elevation. That one. So to me, that looks all wrong. So,
If I break this by going up, I'm violating the height that's been recently adopted by the bill. Now, what, Steve, I think you remember back years ago, Brian Monahan was getting a lot of flack from some residents. I remember Edgar Dangler being appointed to the head of a land use committee. And they came up with a whole bunch of things they wanted to change in the code. And Brian, before he adopted it, turned to Mr. Kelly, turned to myself, and turned to Bob Bob Fitzsimmons, and said, what do you guys think of this? And Bob used to describe himself as the canoe, and Steve and I were the outriggers on the boat, keeping the balance. And what we did is we went in and we showed that what they're proposing to do to lower the height of roofs permitted would result in lots of boxy looking buildings. It didn't make it better architecturally. And that's when Brian said, we can't have people who don't know about design establishing our design standards. So that's where the land use committee came from. And I think that land use committee did amazingly good work. I'm disappointed that I'm seeing things nibbling away at it because there are people concerned that it's been successful in generating redevelopment in our downtown that will increase our tax base and solve some of our problems.
Well, why don't we call for a public hearing?
That's just a presupposition. Yeah. Why not?
This is pretty.
What are the things that are within the planning board's
purview.
right purview here? If we assume that there's an AHRB review and the Board of Trustees ultimately has final say, the kinds of things that that you would want a reading from us on are the parking, I assume, a recommendation about what we think should be done about the parking, right? In terms of the number of spaces and how much of that might be on-site or off-site would be one thing.
Getting in and out of the building.
Right, getting in and out of the building would be, I guess, is one of the site plan things. I guess the business of the view from the aqueduct, more documentation about what this trellis or some other screening would be for the parking.
This, by the way, is not flat. This section here sticks in 2 feet.
Right. Yeah, I
And
saw that.
I was hesitant to do it, but I will just talk and I will not provide, at least not until Javier tells me he wants me to, which I don't think he will. One of the things I played with was we've got this strong height. If I were to have that here, and there was a different form of roof here, Javier, I was gonna see how long it takes for Frank knows what kind of roof I'm proposing. You would have a distinctive mass here with a good proportion, a distinctive mass there with a good proportion. I also think there should be, bay of 3, 6 windows. But you could then have this sloping back as a mansard, which would give you separation between
Is
the
it-
two in exactly the right
I just wanna finish, let me just finish this one train of thought, 'cause I just think, and I'm sort of, you know, moved by what Dwight said. I mean, we really have a clear idea about what it is we're supposed to give you an opinion on, and then we should give you an opinion on it. And so it seems to me it's like this business about the a recommendation about the parking, right? A recommendation about access, that's certainly.
What's the question about access? Because we have a curb cut that's almost where it is, moved up a little further. so it's not on top of
Just
the-
visibility, whether or not there are, somebody should look at whether or not there are visibility issues for cars pulling in and out on that hill, and whether or not there's some, just hear me out, I'm just saying that would be clearly something the planning board would have to say something about. The screening of the parking, if we go with this solution, is clearly something we would have something to say about. Now, the massing, you know, you get into this world we were always in where we're sort of saying, well, that's part AHRB and that's part planning board, right? So, and you have at least one planning board member who feels like,
Horrendous was the word, or what?
who does not like this massing solution. So it seems like you should come here with a couple of ideas about ways of breaking up that horizontal cornice. What else does he need to come here with?
Well, I actually,
Well, the view shed is the issue,
Yes.
well, what issue though? Are you
Well-
like seeing the cars, or?
No, actually being on the aqueduct and what you can see around, what it blocks, and, you know, how you look down Elm Street, and, you know, so you've already built that model, right? You've already
Yeah.
built the SketchUp model.
And we've got 3D models too.
Yeah, so-
that are, you know, obviously, this blocks a lot less view than what the current building does. Current building goes property line, we're set back.
Okay, whatever, I'm just trying to like, as Dwight said, move this along by figuring out what you would come with next time to sort of presumably kind of move this along.
Is there, sorry,
What else do you want him to show? What are the other things
what are
that-
the, I mean, you have this 3D model, what I believe I've heard a lot is, at least some people complaining about the view from above, looking down onto downtown. So in this scenario, you would be seeing, I'm imagining blacktop, flat roofs behind these parapets.
It could, I mean, one of the things I liked about the 4 units instead of 3 units was the staircase goes to the second floor. Staircase could continue to the roof, you could have a green roof and have recreational areas on it. I was trying to get that at 75 and got killed, but I think it's what you want on these. One of the things I think is most atrocious, maybe that was what it is. Atrocious is when you go down to Newtown Square and all the effort that was made to make the building that's IPIC as low as it could be, when having them taller would have made no difference to anyone, but precluded seeing, looking onto the roof. You know, I think that's a view.
I don't know that it was ever gonna be that high.
Well, there was an extra
Not when
story.
you come to that intersection before turning down the hill.
There was, the original design had 1 or 2 stories on top of that building.
No.
And that got cut because everybody said it needs to be lower than people can see it from the woods.
So this would,
Anything
to that
else?
point, would there be air conditioning units on this roof?
Probably, but they can be screened.
Anything else that we?
I mean, they don't have to be. You know, they could be down so you see them, you know, on the ground plane. I think
put
what
'em in
would be
the echo.
better is that you locate them nicely on the roof and you put them in an area that's controlled. Those green, I mean, what we have on top of 2 Ashford Avenue is pretty innocuous. You don't notice anything, you don't see anything.
You don't want a little box up there, that's.
Well, the problem usually is like when you see the roof on IPEC, it's an array of stuff.
Yeah.
It has no order. If you took all your units and you lined them up, so you didn't have them all over the roof, but have them in a concentrated area, and then you had, say, a 5-foot-high equivalent of fence that was around it, so that it screened the look so you couldn't see it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than seeing stuff. But also, I don't know, I mean, where are you seeing this roof if it's 2 stories higher than the aqueduct? If you've got 3-foot parapet, I mean, maybe what I need to do, you know, sightline
Yeah, from,
that showed if I set my stuff in.
From
doing straight
Broadway,
aqueduct,
yeah.
You can't see the roof.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, Broadway and continuing up.
Yeah.
When Rob was talking about the entranceway or access in, maybe emphasizing the street side access into the apartments a bit. I was looking at you haven't really paid much attention to drawing that in.
Which, you mean the front entrance to the building here?
Yeah, that leads you into the stairways.
I mean, yeah, you've got a front door that's modest.
It's an inset, the way you're shown on the plan here.
Am I understanding in the plan, is there a stair behind that?
Yeah,
That-
you come
no,
through this door.
but those windows,
These windows are in the staircase.
do you think that's weird? Well, now we're getting into the world of architecture. I think it's weird
I
to
think
show windows, and I think that should be a different, that's a stair, then it should be articulated that way. But maybe you got a different read from someone else, I don't know.
Well, from this board, when I had that exact design, and I articulated the staircase element,
Mhm.
that was one of the things that this board made one of its 3 points in its memo, that the building should,
Yeah.
that the staircase should be folded into the mass of the building.
Yeah, it looked too
and not
food
be
patty, that was a whole different, it was an entirely different
It
scheme.
would look like
I
a
don't,
staircase, instead of like, this looks like 3 windows on a building, and you come up here, it's really nice, you've got like.
I'm not saying it shouldn't have windows, I'm just saying, I don't know that it should literally be faux apartment windows as opposed to being something that, it's clearly there's something different behind it than a bedroom. But again, I don't know if that's getting into the AHRB's world probably.
I think it's good that there's mass to the building at this corner, so that you see depth going back in and it feels solid, and the cars are parked behind it, because of course you could conceal, this could be 2 really nice bedrooms, or living rooms, or whatever in it, and the staircase could be on the other side, but that pushes the parking to this side.
You don't want steps from you've got it set so your sidewalk, you walk in from the sidewalk without walking up into a step.
Correct.
Into the step, which is a better way to do it, I think.
Yeah, but you could have this be you could actually have this, you're gonna have cars on the other side of this wall, closer to the street, you'd be walking in either, well, you could make this this could be the entrance for everyone. They walk in on here, if they're in a wheelchair or handicap, they come in this way, they get to the same area. And they could go back, and the staircase could be on the back of this instead of the front of this. And then those could be really nice windows in the living room. But is that trade-off, the faux windows, if you will, I mean, they're real windows, bringing real light, this is, this is habitable space above, is it worth bringing the cars closer to the street?
They're behind a wall.
Well, except when I walk down, I have to be able to pull into the parking space. So when I walk down the sidewalk, I'm gonna be looking at a 1-foot thick wall at the back of cars. Right now, I have a brick mass that turns a corner and goes back 10 feet before I get any cars.
Yeah, I don't know.
So the other thing, I think, the 3 townhouse as opposed to the 4-unit thing was probably preferable, is that this feedback at this stage is hard to do, but that seemed to make sense to me. I don't know where the board stands.
I lean towards more units in the downtown rather than few, but that's just my prejudice.
I don't know, what's your sense of what's selling in the market right now?
I guess if I put it delicately, anything that we've put together seems to be doing really amazingly. We're at 835 a square foot now at 75 Main, which is madness, I think. But it's, and what people are looking for is, they're not looking for more bedrooms, they're looking for bigger units. So we had some 1250 square foot units next to some 850 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom. 2 of those 1-bedrooms have been eliminated now by being joined to the 2-bedroom. So, and they didn't do it to have a 3-bedroom, they actually eliminated one of the bedrooms that were living.
Well, I think at our next meeting, we could call for a public hearing unless you think it would be useful for you to have another.
No, I mean, we can have the same kind of discussion at a public hearing. I think we run a risk if we go too far without a public hearing,
would typically expect to go to public hearing at our next meeting.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would call for a public hearing at the September meeting. For a second?
I mean,
Might not get your vote.
We're all
No one's gonna second it, no one's gonna vote for it.
And my sense is that, you know, once something goes to public hearing and that it is, you know, the applicant has a proposal. So, and frankly, my opinion is to do another
Proposal first.
pre-submission.
Yep.
I know,
That's
but this
fine
is a
with me.
pretty,
I'm fine with that too.
That is
I mean, as long as I get.
To get a little
comments
closer to
and
something we
Yeah,
can
no,
live
that's
with.
fine.
yeah, because otherwise it's on the table, we cannot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I'd like to circle back around on this just one more time. You know, you're taking a single structure, you're trying to make it look like 3 townhouses. And I'm with Javier, it kind of looks, doesn't look good to me at all. And, you know, you can look at 100 blocks in San Francisco and see beautiful townhouses climbing up the hill. So there's clearly been success at doing this, you know, for 200 years or whatever. So, and entrances tend to be individual for each one of those units, which may not be space efficient here. You know, there are site plan concerns regarding that kind of issue, but there's a way to make this look good. And I'm just not getting this from this
Right, the challenge, challenge, if you go back to where we were a long time ago, what we did is this would have been 3 townhouse units set back, and there would have been an articulated staircase here that came up to an open walkway that had 3 front doors facing the street. That's what we had when we started, and that was, I don't know if it was, what word was used, but it was great consternation, and that was an awful idea. I thought it was a very good idea, and I thought it worked great. That's what we came in February of 2014 with, and we meandered around with the board until June 2015, at the point we basically said, we want something that looks like the original structure, we want something that goes up with that.
You know, what about the bay windows that are in every one of those San Francisco townhouses? I mean, there's got to be ways to make this more interesting.
Yeah, who's the
I
architect?
mean, maybe that's the AHRB issue, but wow.
But at some point, it has to be whether the flat roses are red or white. Because what we got criticized for heavily was making this a more energetic building than it should be. We were greatly encouraged to simplify it and make it a very simple mass. We were told it's a very small building, it shouldn't be looking big, but we should break down the mass of it. And the example we were given of a direction we should look at was 78 Main Street. That's what we were told. That's a successfully designed building. It's got 2 different colored bricks, even though they don't turn the corner. It uses Anderson windows in its storefronts, but that looks cute somehow. It's got an arch. You know, we have a village resident who asked me if I've ever seen an arch. You know, so, I've actually seen a lot, but not necessarily arbitrarily imposed upon just about any structure. So there are lots of things we can do here. I'm hesitant to go to a design that's energetic, interesting, and is trying to be, say, good architecture, because I think we've already been told that's not what we should be doing.
No one told you not to do good architecture.
If I think something's good architecture and they don't like it, that's fine.
You know, I just play with, you know, see what you can do about the massing.
Whose keys are those?
Mine.
Did you have a feeling on this mass?
I'm not gonna render an opinion at this point.
Well, let me just ask a question. If I come back in and we've broken the consistent cornice line, which is something that's recommended by the architectural review board, will there be somebody disappointed on this board? Because they like having one cornice line tying the building together.
I thought you were trying to produce just a flat roof. It could be an amenity to be sitting up there with
Could be great.
a cup of tea in the morning.
Yeah.
So I thought that's what you were trying to do, but leaving that out of it, I don't have a strong opinion about the cornice one way or the other.
One of my big concerns is how it's encountered on the aqueduct and how you see it on the aqueduct.
Again, I think you guys came up with a really
I think the reason, everybody likes the barn. It's a cultural artifact in this town. And maybe it's not, it doesn't have a historical value in terms of, an outside consultant, but people love that barn in this town, they really do, and they remember it, and it's sort of part of our cultural fabric. So the fact that you had a shape that mimicked the barn was a good thing, I think that resonated with us. But it's also good to not have things right next to the aqueduct, so, it's sort of a quandary.
The fact that barn still exists.
That was your barn.
Result of
No, that design.
our office fighting.
That was your idea. Way back.
Yeah, I know, it really resonates with the people in this town, and that's why you're, getting such pushback.
Oh, back then?
But we're not actually litigating that anymore.
No, I know,
That's
but
not,
All right, can we adjourn now?
please.
Yes. I move we adjourn, you all agree.
We have to do the one issue for the recommendation on the fees. I don't know if you've seen this memo. Ed prepared a memo, remember last time we.
Oh, the fees, I'm sorry,
Okay,
you're
so
right.
just do that quickly so we get that to the board of trustees. Ed had a sliding scale proposal on the fees.
right.
And then we're looking at some other fees related to subdivision, maybe if there's a small one, like these people were here before. So Ed prepared his memo July 16, 2018. I think staff thinks it's pretty solid. Do you want to make a motion and recommend that to the board of
I
trustees?
just feel funny because I haven't read, I'm sure it's great,
Do
but
we
I
have a
just, I
copy
feel
of
funny, I
it?
haven't read it unless you have.
You can wait.
Well, no, I don't think we got a copy.
Yeah, I
We'll wait
don't-
till the next meeting then, that's fine.
Well, or send it, okay.
No,
Let's wait till the next meeting, it's not incredible.
I'll
Okay.
email
Yeah, but
it
weren't
to the
we
board
doing
so you can look
Great,
at
thank
it.
you.
It sounds good.
Will we be able to make stuff retroactive then for those little,
Yeah.
Probably,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm sure we'll like it.
We'll prorate it.
Okay, yeah, we'll make sure everyone gets it before the next meeting, and then we'll deal with it in September.
Yeah, okay.
Are you taking comment on that?
It'll be a public hearing at the Board of Trustees, if you want to take comment here.
Well, now it's here, and I'm.
Have you seen this?
Basically I have.
Okay, you can give us comments, send an email or something, we'll take a look at it.
No vocal comments.
Then no one's seen it.
We haven't seen it.
No,
We didn't see it yet.
Well, it would be how they should read it.
No, don't prejudice.
In English?
Are we adjourned?
we're adjourned.
Okay.